Before you inject a peptide because someone on Instagram said it heals everything, you need to know this. Peptides are powerful biological signals, and the wrong signal, dose, source, or medical context can create real problems. Peptides are everywhere right now. They are being marketed for fat loss, muscle recovery, anti-aging, sleep, brain fog, gut healing, libido, immune support, inflammation, injury repair, skin health, and longevity. And depending on who you listen to, peptides are either the future of medicine or the next overhyped wellness trend. The truth is actually much more complicated. Peptides are not magic, but they are not meaningless either. They are real biological signaling molecules. Your body uses peptides constantly to regulate blood sugar, appetite, digestion, inflammation, immune function, tissue repair, hormone signaling, and cellular communication. For example, insulin is a peptide. Glucagon is a peptide. GLP-1 is a peptide hormone. Many gut hormones, immune messengers, and brain signaling molecules are peptide-based. So when people say peptides are natural, there is some truth to that. Your body does use peptides naturally, but here's the part that often gets left out. Just because your body naturally uses a signal does not mean more of that signal is automatically better. That is the difference between biology and marketing. And this is what I want to break down today from a functional medicine perspective. What peptides actually are, why they are so popular, and why the peptide world deserves a lot more caution than it usually gets. And of course, this is not medical advice. Peptides can have a powerful effect on your systems in your body, but they should be discussed with a qualified clinician, especially if you have medical conditions or you take medications or you have a history of like cancer, autoimmune disease, or endocrine disrupting disorders, eating disorders. So what are peptides? Well, peptides are short chains of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. When amino acids link together in shorter chains, we call them peptides. When they form larger structures, we usually call them proteins. But peptides are not just small proteins. Many peptides act like messengers. They tell cells what to do. They can influence appetite, your blood sugar, immune system, tissue repair, digestion, all those things we mentioned before. And this is why peptides are so interesting in medicine. They often can mimic or amplify or even modify the signals that your body already recognizes. And that is why people in functional medicine are so drawn to them. Functional medicine often focuses on systems biology, which is metabolism, your gut function, your hormones, mitochondrial health, tissue repair, and your immune regulation. Peptides seem to fit into that model because they work through signaling pathways. But this is where we need to be careful because peptide-based interventions does not automatically mean that they're just root cause. A peptide can still be a shortcut. A peptide can push a pathway without addressing why this pathway was dysregulated in the first place. A true functional medicine approach should ask, what is the actual problem? Is this peptide addressing the cause or is it just bypassing it? Is there actual human evidence to support this? What are the risks? What is the source? What is the actual dose that you need to be maintaining? How are we going to monitor it? And are we addressing your sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, gut health? Muscle mass and inflammation, because peptides should not become a way to skip the fundamentals. They are tools for sure, and only sometimes are they the right tools for the right people. So how did peptides become so popular? Well, peptides became popular for a few reasons. First, GLP-1 medications changed a lot for a lot of people. Medications like Semaglutide showed that peptide-based therapies can have dramatic effects on appetite or body weight, blood sugar, and cardiometabolic health. That made people realize that peptide biology is not just fringe science, it's actually mainstream medicine. But that success created a bit of a problem. People started to assume that because some peptide-based medications are powerful and evidence-based, that the entire peptide category must also be powerful and evidence-based. And that's unfortunately not true. Second, peptides sound targeted. Instead of taking a broad-based medication that affects many symptoms, peptides are often marketed as precise biological signals. And that does sound elegant and great. It sounds personalized. It sounds very functional. But targeted does not automatically mean safe. Targeted does not automatically mean appropriate either. And targeted definitely does not automatically mean proven. Third, I think social media and some wellness clinics have made peptides sound almost limitless. You will hear claims about healing injuries or reversing aging, increasing muscle growth, repairing gut lining, boosting immunity, maybe improving your sleep, brain fog, helping to restore libido and also improving athletic performance. And some of those claims are based on plausible mechanisms and actual anecdotal evidence. Some are based on animal studies and some are based on early human data. And some are based mostly just on marketing. And this is why the key question is not, do peptides work? The better question is, which peptide, for what condition, at what dose, for what patient, from what source, and for how long? And with what level of evidence and confidence do we have with this? So not all peptides are the same. This is one of the most important points. Peptides exist on a spectrum. On one end, you have established, maybe FDA-approved peptide-based medications. These can include things like insulin, which we've had for a long time, GLP-1 receptor agonists, glucagon-like therapies, desmopressin, calcitonin, and others. And they have defined uses, dosing, safety data, manufacturing standards, and actual medical oversight. And on the other hand, you have research peptides that are sold online, sometimes labeled as not for human use, while still being promoted through wellness channels for anti-aging, fat loss, muscle growth, libido, immune support, recovery. Some of those products may have limited human evidence or unclear purity, inconsistent dosing, contamination risk, and unknown long-term safety. And in the middle, you have peptides that are used for certain clinical or compounded settings that have sometimes promising mechanisms, but without the same quality of evidence as approved medications. And that middle zone is where a lot of functional medicine peptide therapy lives. And that is where most of the skepticism is probably needed. So let's talk about GLP-1s. They're useful medicine, but not metabolic magic. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. Your body naturally releases GLP-1 from your gut after you eat. It helps to regulate your insulin, glucagon, appetite, your gastric emptying, and satiety, meaning how full you get. GLP-1 medications are designed to activate this pathway longer than your natural GLP-1 signal would from your body. And for the right person, they can be incredibly useful, maybe for a short period of time. For someone with type 2 diabetes, obesity, or high cardiometabolic risk, insulin resistance, maybe fatty liver disease, sleep apnea, or significant appetite dysregulation, these medications can be appropriate and even life-changing, but the current culture around GLP-1s has become too casual. They are being marketed as skinny shots. Med spas are selling them as body contouring tools, and some people are using them for small amounts of cosmetic weight loss. And many are taking them without a real plan for nutrition or your protein intake, your muscle preservation, gut motility, metabolic health, or what happens when they stop. And that's not functional medicine at all. That is a pharmacological appetite suppression wrapped in wellness language. GLP-1s can help to reduce appetite and help with weight loss, but they do not automatically fix the reason someone gained weight to begin with. They don't fix poor sleep or ultra-processed food intake. They don't fix emotional eating. They don't fix how you maintain muscle mass. They don't automatically reverse insulin resistance if someone loses muscle, undereats protein, or stops exercising. And they do not teach someone how to maintain metabolic health long term. And this is one of my biggest criticisms, is that a GLP-1 can medically be appropriate and still be used in a non-functional way. A more functional approach would ask, why does this person need GLP-1 support to begin with? Is this diabetes, obesity, cardiometabolic disease, or just cosmetic weight loss? Are we preserving lean muscle mass? Are we measuring body composition? Is protein intake adequate? Is the patient strength training? Are we managing, constipation, reflux, nausea, gallbladder risk, hydration, nutrient intake? Are we screening for disordered eating patterns? Are we planning for maintenance? Are we using the medication as part of a metabolic restoration plan, or just making the person eat less? GLP-1s are one of the clearest examples of peptide-based medicine with some real evidence for sure, but they also reveal a major problem in modern wellness. A medication can be evidence-based and still be overmarketed, overused, under-monitored, and misunderstood. So yes, GLP-1s can be very valuable, but they are not casual wellness shots. They are serious metabolic medications, and they need serious medical context. Now let's talk about BPC-157. This is one of the most popular peptides in the wellness and performance world. It's often marketed for tendon injuries, ligament healing, gut healing, ulcers, inflammation, joint repair, and pain and recovery. Mechanistically, BPC-157 is interesting. Preclinical research suggests that it may influence blood vessel formation, nitric oxide pathways, inflammation, collagen organization, and tissue repair. And that does sound very exciting, but here's the real problem. Most of the evidence is animal or preclinical. That does not mean that BPC-157 is useless. It just means that we should stop talking about it like it's actually proven. A mechanism is not a clinical outcome. A rat study is not a human recovery protocol, and testimonials is not safety data. From a functional medicine perspective, BPC-157 is a perfect example of biologically plausible not being the same as clinically proven. Could it have therapeutic potential? Absolutely. Should we talk about it like it's a guaranteed tissue healing miracle? Probably not. And if someone has chronic tendon repair, gut symptoms, or slow recovery, a functional medicine approach should not start and end with BPC-157. It should ask, though, why is the tissue not healing to begin with? Is there poor blood sugar control, low protein intake, low vitamin D, iron deficiency, thyroid deficiency, poor sleep, overtraining, autoimmune disease, gut dysbiosis, medication effects, poor circulation? All those kind of things are really important when you're considering how to support somebody, because peptides may support signaling, but they do not replace the materials and conditions needed for repair. You cannot peptide your way out of poor sleep or under eating protein or uncontrolled blood sugar, chronic stress, and repetitive overuse. TB500 is commonly discussed discussed alongside BPC-157. It is related to thymosin beta-4, a peptide involved in cell migration, actin regulation, angiogenesis, and tissue repair. Online, it is promoted for muscle repair or tendon healing, inflammation, injury recovery, and athletic performance. Again, the mechanism is very interesting, but the human evidence is not strong enough at this point to justify many of your claims that you're seeing online, unfortunately. And when something influences tissue repair, blood vessel formation, and cell movement, you need to ask very hard safety questions, because do we know how the long-term safety plays out? Do we know how it behaves in people with cancer risk? Do we know how it interacts with inflammatory disease? Do we know what happens when people stack it with other peptides? Do we know whether the product someone bought online is even what the label says? Usually the answer is not well enough. That doesn't mean that, again, it's automatically dangerous. It means confidence should match evidence. And right now, the confidence in marketing is much higher than the confidence justified by human trials. Another popular category is growth hormone peptides. These include CJC-1295, Ipamorelin, Sermorelin. They are used with the goal of increasing growth hormone signaling, usually by stimulating pituitary gland. People talk about them for body composition, recovery, sleep, muscle, skin, fat loss, anti-aging. The biology involves the growth hormone in IGF-1 axis. So growth hormone can influence fat metabolism, tissue repair, protein synthesis, bone, connective tissue, and metabolic function. But growth signaling is not something to casually optimize. Growth hormone IGF-1 axis is involved in repair and regeneration, but also in cell proliferation. That means clinicians need to think carefully about cancer history or uncontrolled diabetes, sleep apnea, swelling, carpal tunnel syndrome, glucose changes, and maybe some other risks. But from a functional medicine perspective, this is where testing and context matters. Low IGF-1 might affect aging, but it also might affect undernutrition, your liver dysfunction, chronic inflammation, poor sleep, low protein intake, pituitary issues, or overtraining. So the question should not simply be, can we raise growth hormone? The better questions are, why is recovery poor? Is sleep deep enough? Is protein intake adequate? Is inflammation high? Is insulin resistance present? Is a person overtraining? Are there nutrient deficiencies? Could we worsen glucose control? Could this worsen sleep apnea? Could this be inappropriate for someone with cancer risk? So hormone signaling is not just a wellness toy. More is not always better, and anti-aging is not a diagnosis. GHK-Cu is another peptide that generates a lot of attention, especially for skin health, hair, wound healing, and anti-aging. GHK-Cu is a copper-binding peptide naturally found in the body. It has been studied for roles in wound repair or collagen production, tissue remodeling, antioxidant activity, and inflammation modulation. So topically, it is used in skincare, and this is a different risk category from injecting research peptides. A topical peptide in a cosmetic product is not the same as a systemic injectable use peptide. GHK-Cu fits into a functional medicine category because skin health reflects internal biology. Your protein status, your collagen turnover, oxidative stress, your hormones, your blood sugar, thyroid function, gut health, and nutrient status. But we still need to be able to separate interesting biology from inflated claims that we see online. So saying that this peptide may support skin biology is very different from saying that this reverses aging. For skin health, the boring basics still matter. Protein, vitamin C, zinc and copper balance, sleep, blood sugar control, sun protection, omega-3 status, not smoking, managing inflammation. All those things are important because peptides may be one tool, but they are not a replacement for your whole terrain in your system. Let's group a few immune-related peptides together. Thymosin Alpha-1 is often discussed for immune modulation. KPV is discussed for inflammation, gut barrier function, and skin-gut immune patterns. L37 is antimicrobial peptide involved in innate immunity. And these are interesting molecules, but immune peptides are where simplistic marketing can become especially misleading. People say things like they boost your immune system, but the immune system is not a volume knob. You don't always want to turn it up. Some people have weak immune defense. Some have chronic inflammation. Some have autoimmunity. Some have mast cell activation. Some have immune exhaustion. Some have chronic viral reactivation. Some are already highly reactive, and those are not all the same problem. So with the immune peptides, the question is not, can this boost immunity? The question is, what immune patterns are we trying to modulate? Is there a confirmed infection? Is there autoimmunity? Is there uncontrolled inflammation? Is there mast cell activation? Is a person already reactive? And are we actually measuring anything? LL37 is a good example of why this matters. In particular, it's actually antimicrobial, which sounds good, but it also interacts with inflammation, wound healing, and immune signaling. In some contexts, that could be useful. In other contexts, pushing innate immune signaling harder could be a problem. KPB is another example. It may have interesting anti-inflammatory signaling, especially around gut and immune pathways, but that does not mean it's proven to heal leaky gut or fix autoimmune disease or resolve inflammatory bowel disease. The gut lining depends on an entire ecosystem like your microbial diversity, butyrate, vitamin D, zinc, glutamine, protein intake, nervous system regulation, and reduced inflammatory triggers from your diet specifically. A peptide may influence signaling, but it cannot replace the ecosystem. Now, we need to talk about the part that makes this whole topic very risky. The peptide marketplace is pretty messy right now. Some peptides are FDA-approved medications, some are legally compounded in certain contexts, and some are not approved but are used by clinics. Some are sold online as research chemicals. Some may be mislabeled, contaminated, overdosed, underdosed, or degraded, or improperly stored. And the consumer often cannot tell the difference. This is where the chain of custody really matters. Chain of custody means that you can trace the product from raw materials to synthesis to testing to formulation to storage to shipping to prescribing and then to administration. This is where chain of custody really matters. Chain of custody means you can trace the products from raw material to synthesis to testing to formulation to storage to shipping to prescribing and then to administration. With peptides, this is critical because many are fragile molecules and they may require refrigeration. They may degrade if mishandled. They may need sterile preparation. They may need accurate reconstitution. And they may have purity issues. They may have endotoxin contamination. They may have incorrect concentration. And if someone is injecting something into their body, these details are not optional. Compounded is not the same as FDA approved. Research only is not the same as prescribed medicine. Popular online is not the same as clinically proven. And my friend had great results is not the same as safety data. This is especially important with GLP-1s right now because demand has created a huge marketplace for compounded and unapproved versions. Some people are receiving appropriate care through legitimate medical channels for sure. Others are getting products through med spas, online vendors, or telehealth mills with very little assessments. This is not personalized medicine at all. This is a mass marketing prescribing effort. Peptides are biologically active. That means that dose matters, timing matters, your role of administration matters, frequency matters, patient context matters, stacking matters. And a peptide that might be tolerated in one person could be a problem in another person. And so insulin is the clearest example. Insulin is a peptide. It is life-saving when used correctly, but too much insulin can cause dangerous hypoglycemia. That example is not meant to scare people away from peptides. It is meant to make the principle clear. A peptide is a signal, and pushing biological signals without precision can create a lot of problems. This is especially true when people stack multiple interventions. Someone might combine a GLP-1 medication, BPC-157, TB-500, maybe CJC-1295, NAD-related products, hormone therapy, thyroid medication, and stimulants. Then if they feel anxious, nauseous, inflamed, fatigued, constipated, swollen, dizzy, hypoglycemic, or metabolically off, it becomes almost impossible to know what caused what. Functional medicine should not mean throwing 10 interventions at the body and hoping the system sorts it out. It should mean sequencing. You should start with the foundation, identify the mechanisms, use the fewest interventions needed. You got to monitor your response, adjust based on data. Here's the framework I would use before considering peptide therapy. First, we have to define the goal. Are we trying to improve your blood sugar? Are we trying to reduce appetite, heal an injury, improve gut integrity, support immune regulation, improve body composition, address your true hormone deficiency, manage inflammation, support recovery? If your goal is pretty vague, the protocol will be vague. Second, we have to ask whether the peptide is even necessary. Not every problem needs a peptide. Poor sleep does not automatically mean that we need a sleep peptide. Gut symptoms do not automatically mean that we need a BPC-157 or a KPV. Low energy does not automatically mean that we need growth hormone peptides. Immune symptoms do not automatically mean that we need, Thymosin Alpha-1 or LL37. Weight gain does not automatically mean that we need GLP-1 medications. Sometimes the first intervention should be protein, fiber, resistance training, sleep apnea evaluation, blood sugar control, thyroid testing, managing your stress, gut testing, nutrient repletion, alcohol reduction, strength training, and circadian rhythm repair. A peptide may be more appropriate later, but it should not be the first reflex. Third, match the peptide to the mechanism. Different peptides do different things. GLP-1s target appetite, glycemic control, and cardiometabolic risk. Growth hormone peptides target the GH and IGF-1 axis. BPC-157 and TB-500 are discussed around tissue repair, but human evidence is on the weaker side at this point. And GHK-Cu is discussed around skin and connective tissues. Thymosin Alpha-1 and KPV and LL37 are discussed around immune and inflammatory signaling, but they should not all be lumped together. Fourth, we have to grade the evidence. Is this FDA approved for its use? Are there randomized controlled human trials? Are there any animal studies? Are there any antidotes? Do we know any long-term risk? Do we know the risk in people with cancer or pregnancy or autoimmunity or endocrine disorders or multiple medications? This is where a lot of peptide enthusiasm can fall apart. A mechanism is not a clinical outcome. A rat study is unfortunately not a human trial, and a testimony is not safety data. Fifth, we have to address a person's terrain, meaning we have to assess all their systems together and their gut terrain and to ensure that we know that this is actually best for them. Before using peptides, we have to look at blood sugar, your inflammation, liver and kidney function, nutrient status, all the things we've been talking about to this point, because peptides work inside a biological terrain. If the terrain is poor, results may be unpredictable. Six, we have to verify source and quality. Where was it made? Where is it prescribed? Is it legally compounded? Is it third-party tested? Is there sterility testing? Is there endotoxin testing? Was it stored properly? Was it shipped cold if needed? Is it actually intended for human use? If someone cannot answer those questions, in my opinion, that's a pretty big red flag. And seventh, we have to monitor outcomes. A peptide protocol should not be take this and see what happens. There should be a baseline markers and follow-up. And depending on the peptide, that might include your checking your glucose, fasting A1C, your lipids, maybe liver enzymes, kidney function, CBC, inflammatory markers, thyroid markers, body composition, blood pressure, heart rate, GI tolerance, sleep recovery, pain, energy, and any adverse effects. Because functional medicine should be measurable. But here's the bottom line. Peptides are powerful because they speak the language of the body. They can influence metabolism, appetite, tissue repair, all those things we've discussed. And some peptide-based therapies are among the most important medicines we have. Insulin has changed diabetes care. GLP-1 medications have helped to change and improve obesity and cardiometabolic medicine. Other peptides may eventually become important tools as well, but the wellness peptide world often moves faster than the evidence that we have on hand. And this is where most people need to be careful. BPC-157, TB-500, CJC-1295, all these, Thymosin Alpha-1, KPV, LL37 are not just interchangeable. They do different things. They have different evidence levels. They have different safety questions. And many have been marketed far beyond what human data can actually support. From a functional medicine perspective, the goal should not be to chase the newest peptide. The goal should be to understand the system. What signal is missing? What pathways are dysregulated? What terrain is preventing healing? What evidence supports the intervention? What risk are we taking? What is the source? What are we monitoring? Is this actually necessary? So I think the balanced message about peptides is this. Peptides are real. Peptides are powerful. Some are evidence-based medicines. Some are promising but experimental. Some are being marketed far beyond the science that we have on hand. And even the most evidence-based peptides can be misused when they are treated like quick fixes instead of serious medical tools. So if you're considering peptides, don't just ask, what peptide should I take? Ask, why this peptide? Why now? What is the diagnosis? What is the evidence? What is the dose? What is the source? Are we monitoring it? What is the exit plan? And what foundational problem are we trying to actually solve here? Because in functional medicine, the most powerful treatment is not always the newest molecule. It is the right intervention for the right person at the right time with the right context. If this has helped you understand peptides beyond the hype, subscribe for more evidence-based functional medicine breakdowns, and comment below with the peptide you want me to break down next. GLP-1s, BPC-157, growth hormone peptides, immune peptides, or gut support peptides. Because the goal is not to fear peptides. The goal is to understand them clearly, critically, and responsibly. If you want more direct one-to-one help on these types of matters, be sure to click the link down below and you'll be able to get some specific help from me and my team. But otherwise, I hope you have a blessed day.